welcome to Is It Worth It vlogs. This is the different side of videos that we produce aside from the Is It Worth It scale, where we like to discuss a topic or subject that we're interested in, but also to gain a better understanding from you, our viewers. And the subject or topic that we're looking to discuss today is, what was your first car? Maybe you insured your mum's or you stole your girlfriend's. It's an interesting subject that we'd like to know and delve deeper inside the car community. But also later on you'll find out what was my first car. So sit back, relax, and please comment, like and subscribe, but comment more importantly about what was your first car. So firstly, I'm going to give you 3 statements to see if you can figure out what was my first car. It's a French manufacturer, number 1. Second, it's a famous car model name. And number 3, they made an RS edition. It is, of course, the Renault Clio. Now, just a bit of history. In France, there are 3 major car manufacturers. There's Peugeot, if you're French, Peugeot, Citroën, if you're French, Citroën, and of course, Renault, if you're French, Renault. So to start, just a brief history on the Renault Clio, and I want to try and make this video a little homage to my very first car. And the Renault Clio, ironically, was unveiled firstly at the Paris Motor Show way back in 1990, and it was originally designed to replace the Renault 5, which was the best-selling car for 11 years back in France. To put it in perspective, way back in 1990, there were other cars such as the Rover 100 and the Nissan Primera unveiled at the same time. And the word Clio is actually Greek for made to make famous. So the French manufacturer, when making the Clio, wanted to be provocative with the name and not just boring with the standard numbers that you usually get from Peugeot or Citroën. The Renault Clio won the European Car of the Year twice. Firstly in 1991, and that was against the Nissan Primera, and again in 2006 against the Volkswagen Passat, which we know in an earlier video is worth it. In 2003 and 2006, the Renault Clio won the Junior World Rallycross Championships. They also had a joint venture with the very famous F1 Williams team, and they designed a Renault Clio called the Clio Williams, which was inspired by the F1 team. Highlights of the Renault Clio to show its vivacious Frenchness is of course the Thierry Henry commercial Va Va Voom.
Je ne sais quoi. Hey Bobby, what's the French for Va Va Voom?
So when talking about the Renault Clio's facelift and generation, again 1990, this was its first facelift, and this was the Renault Clio Williams. Mine was the second generation, came out in 1998, third generation was 2005, fourth was 2012, and the 5th generation is 2020. So the Renault Clio actually was designed as a Super Mini, and the term Super Mini is actually a British term used to distinguish between a city car and a hatchback, so it's actually smaller than a hatchback. But in 2000 the Renault Clio was actually named a hot hatch thanks to the Renault Clio V6, which had a staggering 250 brake horsepower in the back of the car. The crazy Renault engineers actually managed to fit a V6 engine in the back by stripping out their 2 rear seats. So my first car was the 1.2 blood red dynamic Renault Clio, or if you're French, Dynamique. It was a manual 5-speed gearbox, and for the Dynamique trim, I think you got a CD player and some cup holders, which to be honest was more than some of my friends had in their cars. Yes, they had BMWs and MG ZRs, but I was just happy with this little French car. I mean, it wore its little French heart on its sleeve. It was great. It got me from A to B, factory standard, and you could do 100 miles per hour going downhill, a very steep hill. But insurance, tax, it was all very cheap, and for my first car, it was ideal. There were some, well, hiccups, if I may add. So for example, if I turned into a corner, the gear stick would actually go in that direction as well. And I think there was one time where I was on the motorway with that tiny 1.2 engine, 16V, trying to overtake a lorry, and my then girlfriend at the time was panicking for her life because I actually couldn't even overtake the lorry, and the lorry driver was laughing at me. So it wasn't the best for the motorway, but in terms of getting from A to B, it was a good cheap car. It was reliable at the time, and actually there's another story. Someone actually crashed into the side of it, and I rang the insurance company and they quoted me more than what the car was worth. So that was the Renault Clio. Yes, I wanted this video again to be a little homage to that little French car. And remember, they're still making the model now, 30 years on. The 2020 facelift is out now. Please like and subscribe. I hope you've liked this video, but also comment again on what was your first car. Tell us about the nitty gritty, or again, which car you wish you had for your first car. This is Jack from Is It Worth It Vlogs. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video. Hey Bobby, what's French for va va vu? So I'm here in the Renault Clio. This is the second gen, as mentioned, and this is the one that appeared on the Va Va Voom commercial with Thierry Henry. And just sitting in it now is like, it's like nostalgia to me. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It feels like where I belong. It just feels like I've gone back in time, and I'm happy again when I was in my teens. God, I sound like my dad. What's the horn like? Not well, close. But yeah, for you can see where Thierry Henry was coming from with the Va Va Voom. Okay, the handling, the suspension, yeah, there's a bit of understeer, but it's just a great little car to drive. I mean, you can imagine this is what Renault had in store to replace that Renault 5, just in the sun, getting around the city, having fun. So it's just brilliant just to drive. Yes, there's no frills or bells or whistles, but it's just basic. It's just back to the road. To be honest, that's what driving's missing, I think, quite a lot these days. But what a great little car. It's great to be back in the Clio. I never thought I'd say that.